Enemy on Delta!
Insurgency Sandstorm is New World Interactive's most recent game and the next installment in the Insurgency franchise. A franchise that grew out of one of the absolute classics of the Source modding community and wants to meet you in the middle ground between Battlefield and Squad. Insurgency Sandstorm does not revolutionize the formula that made Insurgency great, but vastly expands on it. Fans of the original will find it easy to transfer to the new game, which is quite an achievement for the developers since they switched to a different engine. The mod as well as the standalone game were both based on the Source engine, although the latter one used a modernized version comparable to CSGO. The new Insurgency Sandstorm utilizes the Unreal Engine 4, which enabled the developers to vastly improve the game's visuals, yet it retains the style and feeling of the original. The base gameplay hasn't changed all too much. The fight for objectives is still at the heart of the action. Capturing areas, holding them against enemy counterattacks, destroying supply points and taking out all enemy combatants is still the main focus of the various game modes. The respawns are still limited, and depending on the type of game you are playing, these limitations can be very severe. One of the thrills of this game is that often the next wave can only spawn when your team captures an enemy control point, leading to intense situations where the team's success hinges entirely on the last remaining player, who against all odds manages to take control of a point, bringing his entire team back into the action and potentially turning the game around for his team. But this was the case in all previous games. So what is new? Here I almost forgot to put on my gas mask. Always remember to take one with you, because Sandstorm allows for several new tactics. Calling in support in the form of not only artillery strikes is now possible. Helicopters and ground attack plane strafing runs have been added, as well as chemical attacks. An A-10 definitely sends everyone into cover, and the sound is definitely harrowing. In addition to the guns themselves, the radio chatter comes across as rather authentic. Let's listen in so you can judge for yourself.
Observer, this is station. Copy. Stand by for rolling.
Enemy on the main road. Watch out, guys.
Firing.
One thing that surprised me in Insurgency Sandstorm is the inclusion of gore effects, which are not present in many modern shooters. When, for example, a player is hit by a very powerful explosion, he can be torn apart. Although gruesome and something you wouldn't see in Call of Duty, it fits this game very well. Here we see an example of that. This insurgent was hit by a 40mm high explosive shell from my underbarrel grenade launcher. Another new item are flashbangs, or at least I haven't noticed them in the previous game. These open up new tactics that should be familiar to every Counter-Strike player. And maybe the most impactful new addition are pickup trucks with mounted heavy machine guns. With these, you are able to transport fighters relatively quickly, however their most notable use is as a mobile weapons emplacement. And the gun shield provides enough cover to make a sniper's life pretty hard. One of these trucks can be a real pain in the ass when they are blocking off your advance with a machine gun barrage. Some new infantry weapons have also been introduced. I love the G36, but I guess I am biased. The weapon customization system known from the previous games has been retained and expanded upon. New attachments and equipment, such as the gas mask to counter the previously mentioned chemical attacks, have been added. The weapon customization works like in the previous game, but has a lot more options now. You have a variety of gun sights and scopes available, longer barrels, biports, foregrips, and so on. It will take a while until you find a combination that suits your personal liking, but after some time you will figure out what works for you, which sights you like, and so on. Every class has slightly different stuff available, and of course this varies even more depending on which side you play, as insurgents or security forces. For example, the Security Forces Advisor class has a lot of exotic weapons available. While guns like different AK variants dominate the battlefield, the Advisor can select, for example, a Scar MK17, pretty interesting gun and unique to the battlefield. Something that I really like to do once in a while is play the Sniper class and take a bolt-action rifle without any modern optics on it, and take the challenge of using a World War II gun against modern weapons. Admittedly, it doesn't work out every time, but when you manage to dominate an enemy with a bolt-action rifle, it's really satisfying. When selecting weapons, several visual bugs become apparent at the moment. Sometimes weapon attachments or the whole weapon won't load correctly, but more on these issues a bit later. Something that wasn't seen in this scale in previous games is the character customization, something that will probably be more explored in the final release with adding smaller cosmetic items as microtransactions. But even without them, various new outfits entered the arena. While previous games focused more on the Iraq War and US forces, the new game introduces regional security forces, who are often supported by US or British military advisors. Here I am playing a machine gunner of local forces, following an advisor from the US Army. You can clearly distinguish them by their uniforms. The game relies upon a class system, and there are quite a lot of them in the PvP and PvE mode. All come with a wide range of weapons and equipment. The commander, for example, has to closely cooperate with the advisor, for only the advisor has a radio to call in support. These are classes better left to more experienced players, since a misplaced artillery strike can really do a lot of harm to your own team, and the class's slots are limited. So new players better stick to the grunts, but no worries, you will still have plenty of options to explore. Insurgency Sandstorm does have a leveling system, but the level ups don't influence the weapons that you get. From the get-go you can choose every weapon. So a long phase of annoying grinding until you get better weapons won't happen in this game. Everyone has the same weapons, so no fighting against people with way better equipment than you. The game also introduces a competitive matchmaking system, in which the classes are reduced to Close Combat class, Assault class and Sniper. Sadly, I cannot show you any competitive gameplay since I never managed to find enough players to start a match. Hopefully this will change upon the final release with more players entering the field. Comparing Sandstorm's maps to previous games, you will quickly notice that they are bigger, but not to the scale of Battlefield or Squad. You will have to do some running, but the distances are not overly long. The maps are also rather static. Destructible environments are not included in the game, so you can be sure that a stone wall will give you permanent cover. The sometimes disadvantageous level design makes it a real challenge from time to time. Here I am stuck. There are at least 2 guys on the upper floor, and there is no way I'm getting up there without being killed first. So I chuck a hand grenade up there, and to my surprise, the 2 guys scramble down the stairs instead of fleeing to the next room. Like pretty much every shooter, this game rewards map knowledge, cooperation and oftentimes patience. You are no use dead, so sometimes wait and listen before you run around a corner. In other situations, unconventional tactics may come in handy as well. You run out of ammo? Just throw your C4 over the cover and hope for the best. Don't hesitate to fire a few extra rounds. There is no kill feed, so make sure the enemy is really dead. Also, blind fire on a position where you just suspect an enemy can be helpful just to suppress them. At the moment, the game is still fighting with some performance issues. Interesting though, during the alpha I had no such issues, so I am rather confident that they can resolve the issues until release. Sadly, I am not allowed to show you alpha footage since I signed an NDA. The lags have gotten better over the last few days, but still visual anomalies and microlags occur. For a game that comes from the Source engine, one of the smoothest running engines out there, this is something I find intolerable and definitely needs fixing. Another letdown is the cancellation of the single-player campaign. Originally, we were promised a campaign which would have been a first time for this game series. We even got a trailer for the single-player, so the cancellation is really disappointing. But the developers needed to focus on the multiplayer to get it working properly before launch, and as we can see, they still have some work ahead. It is possible that we will still get the single-player campaign at a later date, since it was cancelled pretty late in development. If it comes with an extra price tag or will be a free edition is unknown at the moment. The base game is currently available for $30, a fair price for this kind of game. Owners of the original Insurgency will get a discount, dropping the price by 20% for the pre-order. A pretty good deal for this kind of game. It is not a full price title and $30 is, I guess, fair. The game is currently only available on the PC in a closed beta. Console players will have to wait until next year for a PS4 and Xbox One release. But honestly, I am not entirely sure how a tactical shooter like Insurgency will play on a console. But I usually play games like Tony Hawk and Spyro on consoles, so my shooter experience is limited when it comes to consoles. It might work out just fine. Insurgency is a hardcore shooter. The controls are easy to get a grip on, they are very much the same as in any other shooter. But the game is often slower than games like Counter-Strike. And then, in a matter of seconds, all hell breaks loose. Either you react quickly, or you'll have to wait for a respawn. There's no health regeneration or medipacks. When you play the game for the first time, be sure to bring some tolerance for frustration, because especially as a beginner, you will die very often. More than often, you die without knowing where the shot came from, or a random explosion just blows you away. The game is unforgiving and has a steep learning curve, but once you know what to do and keep your head down, you will slowly gain the upper hand in most engagements. If you combine that with a team that cooperates, or you bring some friends along with you, you are almost unstoppable. So that's the new Insurgency Sandstorm. If you enjoyed the last game, you will probably love this as well. If you are looking for run and gun gameplay, this game won't be for you. But if Battlefield is way too casual for you and Squad is just way too much of a hassle to get into, this game is for you. But look out for news before you buy, because especially if your PC is not top-notch, these performance issues can really cause some trouble for you. Unlike the previous game, this runs barely on my laptop, but well, it is not Source anymore, so what do I expect? I hope you found this video to be informative, and hopefully we will meet on the battlefield. Special thanks to all our loyal supporters on Patreon, who of course got to see this video first. So, see you guys next time. Till then, have a nice day, and as always, goodbye and guten Tag.